I don't know. But yeah, no. So that's
Just roll.
Long meandering answer, but I'll make it somewhat succinct. So I worked on the Hill for a long time, a lifetime ago. And then after a while, I went down to North Carolina, and then afterwards, just really across the country, running campaigns, working on different projects, mostly in North Carolina, but also Montana, Georgia. And then eventually making my way up here. I was asked to come up here from North Carolina once again. I ran a congressional race down there. We lost in the primary, and then a woman, Nicolay Ambrose, asked me to run her congressional campaign, and I did that, and moved up to Cockeysville, and I decided to stay. So for a number of reasons, mainly just I really like the area. Actually, as Nicolay has put it, I think this is a good way of putting it, is the only thing that's wrong with this area is the politics. And I guess maybe sort of I could try and do something about that. So then I talked to Nicole about the executive director position. It really seemed like a perfect fit. And I'm still drinking from a fire hose, but I really like it so far, and I feel like we can do a lot. So
tell me, Adam, what was your first campaign that you ever volunteered in?
Oh, geez. It depends on...
you don't have to have been running the campaign. You got started, right? You all have to start sometime.
Really, the first real campaign activity that I did was I kind of took it upon myself to run the Ron Paul campaign in northeastern Kansas back in 2008, which was really just, I knew nothing about politics, and it was a complete crash course. Just everything. I knew nothing and just learned so much so quickly. And then afterwards, I got involved with a group called the Leadership Institute, went and did some trainings. They placed me out on Pat Toomey's first Senate campaign in Pennsylvania, and really kind of it just all went downhill from there, depending on who you ask. So,
well, you have a lot of Mort Blackwell fans, as you can imagine, here in Maryland, and many of us have all gone through any one of a number of courses. It's a tremendous resource for anyone considering to get involved in politics.
Yeah.
So how did you know you were a Republican? Everyone's got that moment with like, oh, I guess this is how I know. How did you know?
So at risk of being called some kind of a rhino. So once upon a time when I was a stupid kid, 2006, I believe, was the first year that I was able to vote. I was a registered independent, and I voted split ticket, probably more Democrats than anyone, because I just really hadn't thought about it. I mean, I always had strong opinions about things, but it was the 2008 cycle that really kind of knocked some sense into me. I said, I'm throwing all my preconceived notions out of the way. And then some guy named Ron Paul started saying things that I thought made sense. I, to this day, am very much a small L libertarian, right? It's much more complicated these days. I'm not, that libertarian nowadays, but it tends to happen when you get older. But it was that cycle. And then, frankly, there have been times where I've thought, I don't really want to be involved in politics anymore. And then I just see more and more egregious. The way I like to put it is Democrats won't ever leave me alone. So as much as I would like to be done with politics, I can't, because they're not going to stop. So it was really the COVID thing that really kind of got me my passion reignited. I ran a lieutenant governor race down in North Carolina that was unsuccessful. And of course, everybody in politics knows that every defeat, hurts. But that one was particularly rough. And then COVID started, and I just got upset. I got angry. And so I got back involved and did more campaigns, and here I am. So
how did you end up in North Carolina?
So when I went after Toomey's campaign, I was determined to work on the Hill. And so I moved up to DC beat everybody's door down, and a woman named Renee Elmers gave me an internship. So a member out of North Carolina's 2nd District. And then 5 years later, I was basically running her congressional office. So I really kind of cut my teeth on the Hill in her office. She's still a good friend to this day. And for that reason, there's no other reason other than I got that internship that most of my career has been North Carolina focused.
That's a really good introduction. It's also a good introduction to politics. I'll tell you, I like to say this. When I was still a teenager, which was a while ago, I did that on the Hill while I was going to that great institution, GW, right? Another GW. But it was a great lesson just reading the mail and learning the diversity of issues and kind of beginning to absorb some of the issues and picking up sort of more about politics. So it's a good grounding. Obviously, it's a little different than campaigns, which is sort of another piece of the whole puzzle. But you did that. You went back to North Carolina and have worked on a number of campaigns.
Right. Well, and that was kind of my Hill experience was North Carolina focused. And then so when I went back to the political side, it just naturally kept being North Carolina. Then I do love North Carolina. It's a great state. But important to us, I think, and one of the reasons I thought that this kind of position worked is North Carolina, their political situation has a lot to inform our political situation. And I feel like a lot of folks here feel like they're very downtrodden. They're worried that, they're worried about winning. And North Carolina was that same way at once as well. And they have 2-to-1 Democrat to Republican voter registration, just like us. And they had a state party that was completely defunct. Their chairman was being indicted, I believe, at one point. They were completely bankrupt. Mike Watley came in and cleaned things up. I love Mike, by the way. He's great to work with. And now they have super majorities in both houses. They don't have the governor's house, but they have a lieutenant governor. So if they can do that, and we can do that, especially in a state where we've had Republican governors twice in recent memory. So I think there's a lot. I need to have another conversation with North Carolina's ED and those folks down there again, and just chat with them and try and replicate some of the things that they've been doing. But again, part of that also is they have some very strong county GOPs down there as well.
It's interesting because you also worked on in Pennsylvania on Pat Toomey's race, and in some respects they're sort of bookends, if you will. Obviously, Pennsylvania has more mid-Atlantic characteristics that our state does have, but it's also a template for how to be competitive in a mid-Atlantic state. Sorry, Jackie, but yeah.
No, I was going to say you stole my question before I could ask it.
Yeah.
So as you mentioned, it's kind of been like drinking through a fire hose. I remember when I first moved to Maryland, just learning the dynamics of the state legislature and the counties, everything like that. And if you put a map of Maryland in front of me, I probably still couldn't fill it in properly. I know where Montgomery County is, but can you talk a little bit about what your experience has been like so far, learning everything? What have you picked up on about Maryland since you've gotten involved as ED?
Well, my geography my Maryland geography is so much better than it was a couple months ago. I kind of learned quite a bit just being on Nick Lee's campaign and kind of, but now I'm kind of learning everything outside of Carroll County and Baltimore County, right? Which it's amazing how much different the western part of the state is and the eastern part of the state is, and even Anne Arundel County, just how different it is. So I've been spending a lot more time down in Annapolis recently. So learning a lot about that, really just learning how to get around Annapolis, kind of confusing at first. So, but I really like it. It's more than just crabs. There's quite a bit going on. I really like Maryland because there's quite a bit going on, but it's not pretentious like DC, right? That always kind of got. I lived there for 10 years, and that always kind of got on my nerves. But I I like that there's stuff going on. There are people doing things, but yeah, there's not that kind of pretentious air about it.
Yeah. And there's so much he hasn't seen, right? You haven't been to Secrets yet in Ocean City.
I was going to say is Adam, you evidently have not spent enough time in Montgomery County yet.
Right. You want your pretentious fix? Come here.
Because pretentious in the state of Maryland. I mean, you're right about. I mean, it's the difference between Baltimore and Baltimore County and the rest is all the pretentious like got shook and ended up down in Montgomery County.
Well, it overflows from DC.
And we are the Montgomery County Republican Club too. So this is just an acknowledgement of the way things are, right?
The people on the Hill all send their kids to school here, so
right.
It's overflow. They grow them here.
There's still a lot I need to do because I've only been here since August, actually. But I mean, like, I need to go to TAWS. I need to. I mean, I need to eat a lot more crab. I mean,
this summer is gonna be.
I mean, it's one of those things where I didn't really get it. I'm like, okay, these Marylanders, they're kind of insane about their crab. It can't be that good. And so, yeah, no, I get it. It's good.
Or it's gonna have like Natty Boh and Orange Crush drinking contests.
We just had a reminder about Old Bay, which is one of the sort of, how shall I say, the de rigueur sauce or seasoning of the state of Maryland, both obviously for crabs, but for just about anything else, right?
So people think I'm joking, but I'm 100% serious about this. So I live like just south of Hunt Valley, right? So next to the McCormick plant, and I was telling them like it constantly smells like Old Bay. And they're like, no, you're joking. No, I'm serious. And now that I've been here since August, I have gotten used to it, so I don't really smell it anymore. But every once in a while, I'm kind of reminded, like, it constantly smells like Old Bay here.
So what's your opinion of the Maryland flag?
Is that going to get me in trouble? I don't know.
Look, Mark and I are both transplants. Mark's from New York and I'm from New Jersey. So
let me put it this way. Have you ever seen the Kansas flag?
No.
It's not very exciting. It's like a seal with like some covered wagons on it and some buffalo, and it's nice, I guess, but it literally just says Kansas on the bottom. So you guys get points for design.
Maryland is, I'm trying to be diplomatic here. I'm not a fan, but I will say it has a real historic heritage about it, being obviously the emblem of the Calvert family that was carried forward. And it really touches into that kind of historic identity that Maryland has. But let's shift gears. I mean, you're now executive director. You mentioned tapping in to other executive directors around the country, and there's a lot to learn from them. What kind of advice do they give you?
Well, it just depends. I mean, they all have advice on vendors. I know I had some conversations with a couple of them at the last RNC meeting, and one of the comments, and one of them was, "You have 2 conventions a year? Really? We have one every 4 years." No, I know our ideas of conventions are a little different, but it is just interesting to hear kind of how like the different parties are just completely different, structured differently. With the conventions and just how they function. A lot of it's vendors, right? A lot of it's vendors because those can make and break you as a state party. But a lot of it's going to be the mail-in ballots because that's going to be the new territory. That's going to be the kind of the frontier. And there are some states that have done some really great things with mail-in ballots. Not North Carolina because ballot harvesting is illegal down there. But there are a couple other states, like I believe Florida. What was the one? We had a grassroots meeting just the other night. I'm blanking on what state she was from. But she had done some great. Mark, I don't remember if you were on that call or not.
I wasn't, but we really are looking around the country to figure out best practices. I mean, to kind of interject, but part of the conversation, I think it's fair to say, is that whereas collectively Republicans said before the 2022 elections, this is just terrible and we don't want to play. I think that we all got hit with a thunderbolt, didn't we? With we have got to participate. If that's what the law is, that's what we got to participate, and we got to figure out a better way of doing it.
Well, and I've been really encouraged because I've been trying to, as much as I can, kind of talk to these different clubs and central committees. And whereas there was that resistance before, I've been really encouraged. There really isn't any now, in the sense of nobody's saying, oh, right, you shouldn't mail in.
Right.
They're all acknowledging that these are the rules of the game and we must play the game. Right. And I think that that's where we need to be. I think for a lot of reasons, this last election was a wake up call, and I've been very, very encouraged at the change in tone within the party. And then the other side of that is the unity side, right? I feel like I've gotten a lot of positive feedback in, oh, well, this might have happened, that might have happened, but moving forward, we can't do that again. Right.
You know, it's interesting. I mean, some of the conversation about mail-in ballots, and again, it's 180 degrees for many Republicans. So it's a bit of a whip. There's a bit of a whiplash going on. Maybe that's the way to describe it. Is that it's the low propensity voters that we ought to encourage to do mail-in ballots. Mm-hmm. And the theory behind that is, whereas before you only had election day to get them to the polls, you could do a fair amount of pushing and whatever, but it was all going to be on election day. If they've already signed up for mail-in ballots, you then have, depending on the rules at the time, up to a month to spend some time getting them to fill out the ballot and to do that ballot chase that's so important to get people to return. And again, that's a big change in the thinking, but it also requires a whole lot of operational systems, because it means you've got to spend those weeks making sure that people fill out the ballot and send it in.
Right. Well, I guess, I mean, from a campaign manager point of view, I mean, the way we should be looking at it is every mail-in ballot that we get turned in, that's one more thing that we don't have to do on election day. Right. Because anybody that's run a campaign knows that there is absolutely never even a tenth of the time that you would like to have on election day. There just isn't. So we need to start looking at it that way. That's how they look at it. That's why they did it. And so we look at it that way. And to your point, though, it's going to require a lot of systems, right? And so that's one thing that I'm looking into. We've been talking to the RNC about developing something because we could, through the state party, try and develop some kind of CRM or something like that, but it would be costly. It would kind of, frankly, be silly, because this is something that needs to be implemented nationwide, and it needs to be the same state to state. And so we need to be able to go on to some kind of CRM and say, okay, these are the houses in this precinct that have more than 2 Republican mail-in ballots that are outstanding that we can go harvest, send 2 trained people out to hit a specialized walk list, collect them. I mean, just that. But that doesn't happen if we don't have the technology.
Right.
Right. And this technology, this 2023 is when we need to be testing this, not developing it, because it needs to be ready for prime time 2024. We're working.
It's interesting. I mean, one of the sort of legacy approaches that our precinct organization in Maryland, the best precinct organizations, if you will, had been that on election day, you would put a table out in front of the polling place and greet the Republican voters as they came. And then that system sort of got pulled over to early voting. And then you had relatively fewer than at least in election sites to do that. But so obviously, we've got to rethink that, because the voters that are showing up at the polls are the high propensity voters. We're also, I think the data suggests that the early voting voters tended to be high propensity voters. It really didn't change turnout all that much. So it's a different group that we're trying to reach with mail-in ballots, and requires a different approach.
Yeah, well, and I think we just need to rethink the approach to voters in general. I mean, I was talking to somebody at the doctor's office the other day, and she was saying, "Oh, well, there were somebody that worked there. It was a family practice, and they were all Republicans." And but I got they were like, "Oh, we're enthusiastically Republicans," but I was talking like, "How many times have you voted?" And it turns out the only time she had voted was 2018 over the last 4 elections. And those are the people we need to get, and maybe it's also people that don't necessarily consider themselves Republicans, but they are. I still work at a restaurant on the weekend. All those people are Republicans, right? And it's as simple as they don't like paying taxes, and maybe we're messaging to them wrong, but if any of those people have a ballot in their box, we need to make sure that it gets turned in. And then, I mean, Mark, also to your point, voter registration is something we need to be looking at, not just the mail-in ballots. I mean, there are Republicans out there that don't want to admit they're Republicans or haven't thought about the fact that they're Republicans. And they're just out there. I think nobody's cared to reach out to them, right?
It's been a challenge. I don't think we've done an organized, in particular. I obviously I advocate an outreach effort to the unaffiliated voters. In Maryland, that's no small project, if you will, for an individual, because this tends to be a Democratic state. So when a person decides, no, I'm not signing up for that, I'm going to be unaffiliated, you got a good deal more than just a glimmer of hope that they're going to be independent enough to kind of buck the dominant trend and vote Republican.
Especially after 4 years of full Democrat control in this state.
Yep.
Right. I would like to look into drilling down more on the unaffiliateds, right? Mm-hmm. Because if we could target some of these unaffiliateds and get a better idea of, because unaffiliated could mean libertarian, it could mean communist, right? And so if we're going to target these folks and get them and turn them out, we need to make sure it's the right independent, the right unaffiliated, right?
So we got a question in the chat. Will those who harvest or collect ballots be issued some sort of ID to make them official? So I think what Mike is going for there is, do we have some kind of training for people who want to become ballot collectors? Or is that something?
Right. So there will be. Yeah. So there'll be a training. There won't be an ID. You don't need any kind of a licensure or identification to collect ballots. But there are some very specific laws that you have to follow. And so as a general rule, I don't think we certainly wouldn't send anybody out ballot harvesting without actually going through some kind of a training. We would advise all campaigns to do the same, right? And that doesn't have to be like a formal training, but they need to be sat down and explained. I would like to have some kind of a packet that we could hand out to people. Black and white. Here's what's legal. Here isn't. Because the first volunteer, I mean, these people are volunteers, right? They're giving us their time for free. And the first time that somebody gets in trouble with the law because they were trying to help us out, like, that looks terrible, and nobody else is going to want to volunteer for us. So we have to make sure they all know what they can and can't do.
I kind of like the idea. I kind of like the idea of whipping out a badge, like professional ballot harvester,
official ballot harvester.
It does underscore that when you're sort of the responsibility, when you're, say, registering people or performing sort of board of election or election functions, that you're obligated to pass information on. I mean, that's in the law. Which the flip side to that means that you need, as Republicans, or campaigners, to be very targeted in who you're reaching out to. Otherwise, you may not be as effective as you want to be in what you do. But that's interesting. It's a great question from Mike, in that it also underscores, doesn't it, Adam, the sort of the expectation that there may be that you find out that somebody's going to be voting mail. And B, that the party may be in touch with them to follow through to make sure that they're doing it. So they're kind of not caught unawares and feel comfortable about the process.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, well, there's a lot of education to be done, right? Because I mean, it's not just what they can and can't do. I mean, I've run into people that say, I thought ballot harvesting was illegal, right? So it's just even that, just because in some states it's not, right? Like I said, North Carolina, it's not. I've known people that got in trouble for it, right?
I don't know. There may be a different way to describe it. I haven't come up with the term.
Well, it's people keep referring to it as cheating.
Yeah.
Well, if the law says it's legal, it's not cheating, right?
Absentee ballot chase, Mark, is the term coined by Nicole.
Well, mail. It's actually not absentee these days. It's mail-in ballot chase, ballot chase, or something like that, or voter assistance program. Maybe that's what we ought to call it.
We're here to help.
How about that?
From the government, we're here to help.
Voter assistant Republican.
So, Adam, how many of the counties have you been to so far? Are you like checking them off?
So not as many as I'd like, because we've had sessions so far. I've been I went up to Hartford County, and I've been to Howard County and Anne Arundel, and I've kind of stayed in that little core. I went to Charles's Lincoln dinner, kind of events here and there. I've tried to kind of knock most of the Baltimore County clubs out as much as I can since I'm here, but I'm going to be branching more out to the east and to the west. I love the mountains, so you'll have to. I mean, it'll be difficult to get me back when I go out there.
He's going to drive right past us to go to Allegheny and Garrett County. He's not going to stop here.
No.
Are you sure you're from Kansas?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is I'm so used to this nothing on the horizon, just a completely flat horizon. No, it's the focus has been on Anne Arundel, just with session and everything. Then post April 10th, it's going to be a lot more. And we're going to try and mix it up too, as far as like meetings and conventions and stuff. I know the tendency was to have everything in Anne Arundel, and that's just by nature of it being central, which is great. But we're going to kind of mix it up a little bit, get everybody to see the different parts of Maryland. We're not going to make everybody go to the extremes probably, but yeah, like we had an event in Baltimore County.
I speak. Yeah, I was going to speak for. I knew this was going to come up. We got a comment already about Ocean City. I hope you're not including Ocean City in the category of extremes, right?
If it was up to Dwight, every convention would be Ocean City.
But anyway, we won't put you in trouble there.
Can't get nailed down on anything quite yet. But
yeah. So, but let's talk about. I mean, obviously, there is a convention that's coming up before the Red, White, and Blue dinner, right? Yeah. Tell us what you got planned for that.
So we're hoping to get some good speakers for the VIP reception on that Friday night. So if possibly some presidential candidates, don't have anything confirmed yet, so I can't really say one way or the other. But what I would say is if anybody's interested in getting a VIP ticket or like the convention package that includes a VIP ticket, I would do it now, because if we get a very good speaker or multiple speakers, that price may be going up. So
get in at the ground level while you can.
Yeah.
And even an opportunity for resale, but I think that there may be an election violation there if you buy the ticket.
Can we resell our tickets?
Yeah.
I don't know that that's kosher. But
I don't think that's legally kosher.
I don't think anyone's ever tried.
We do have Robin Ficker in the house to let us know, and I see Robin's comment is that he likes Ocean City, and it's interesting. You know his strategy. There you go. So his strategy when he was running statewide was to park himself. I'm speaking for Robin here. Park himself in Ocean City, and and let all of Maryland come and visit him. So
on the boardwalk.
On the boardwalk. That's one hammy. So this is, I mean, obviously that's a great opportunity for Republicans from across the state to go to the convention. And I've heard that conversation from other states. My God, you 2 conventions a year. It's obviously something we've been used to in Maryland, but it's a great opportunity. We've talked a lot about the need for unity. And I think as a party, we really do need to kind of come together and apply that 80% rule, where we realize that, if we share enough on the issues 80% of the time, then we're really all on the same page.
Right.
The conventions, when they're really well run, they're a great opportunity for folks to see that, they do have a lot in common, and they do have a lot to work together on, and to meet candidates and to kind of get enthused. So I'm hoping we're able to incorporate that in the sessions.
Yeah. Well, and more so, I think you tend to get along with people when you met them in person, and you actually know that you enjoy their company. And frankly, from all the interactions that I've had with all the Maryland Republicans, is they're generally fun people, right? I mean, like they're generally pretty fun people, and there are very few of them that I don't like, right? They're all fun to be around, fun to talk to, and you go to a convention, it's a good time. So you go to the reception, have a couple drinks, and
we know how to.
You're a little less likely to be hurling insults over Twitter,
or more likely, depending on if you're an angry drunk or not.
Right? No. We're gonna. I'm telling you, Jackie, I'm a glass half. Well, I guess in this context, a glass half full suggests that anyway.
Glass half angry.
Half empty, right?
So what more can you tell us, Adam, about what's going on over at the state party?
So there's a lot. Basically, we're kind of building from the ground up, right? And we're reviewing all of our vendors, all of our systems. Everything is going through a complete review. Our walk app, how we keep track of our donors. I mean, everything across the board. Getting quotes from all the different vendors. Like, for instance, the walk app, we're not doing Sidekick anymore. We're going with someone else. We haven't decided who, but we're working on that. A couple other things. And so we're kind of building all these processes. So we need people to kind of be a little patient with us here at the beginning, but we're leaps and bounds better than we were even a couple of months ago. And we're blessed with some really good central committees that are doing a huge amount of work. I know some folks in Baltimore County are doing some really good stuff with Nick Lee's grassroots committee and doing a lot of stuff on election integrity. So that's going to be huge. But there's a lot going on. We're just really in the beginning stages. Right. And fundraising, right? Fundraising is going to be first and foremost here in 2023. This is a rebuilding year. We've just got to be ready for next year. And at the same time, we've got to make sure that we're not ignoring these municipal races and that we're winning when we can put a W up on the board, we need to do it. And a lot of these races are very winnable, actually. So.
And it's a great opportunity to kind of test out some of these systems and to see how the approaches work, and obviously also to train. I'll ask you a question. Was there anyone who pushed for Sidekick?
Yes.
Really? Okay.
You don't have to give us names.
No names. No names.
I won't. It might get me in trouble, but
no names.
I actually mentioned that kind of part of my background in the campaigns is with paid door knocking. So I'm very painfully familiar with all these walk apps. I am not a fan of Sidekick.
You an i360 guy? I'm an i360 person.
I used to be. I've got a good friend, former coworker of mine, works for them. They seem to not be on great terms with the RNC. I'm not sure why. For us, it's between two vendors. I've always been a fan of Advantage myself, personally. I know people disagree. Right. There's also a new vendor on the block, Numenar. So we're kind of looking at those two, but we haven't decided. But Mark, to your point, though, these municipal races are going to be great because what we're going to just do is have trials for both of these and just say, go forth and tell us which one is better. Right.
If Ryan Nidak is out there and listening, I've told him he should develop the ultimate door knocking app, and he would make so much money.
Well, but that it's interesting that raises what has been his challenge. And Adam, you talked about going back to 2008, and politics today, isn't it? It's a technology arms race, and what was state of the art 2 years ago, 4 years ago is just yesterday's news. And we are constantly not we collectively, both the Democrats are doing it as well, are constantly upgrading their game. And so it's a real challenge to figure out what's the best way to go into the 2024 cycle.
Right. Well, and with the walk app, that's one of the things we're talking about, that technological arms race, as we're talking about mail-in ballots, right? And so which one of these walk apps and which one of these, the data providers are going to work seamlessly? It's one thing to say, are you a Republican, are you a Democrat, are you voting for this congressional candidate or this one? But then when you go into the actual ballot harvesting, can I just start up a new campaign and just plug and play, or is it going to be a whole issue, right? And we've yet to see what their kind of interconnectivity is on that.
I'm going to try out my phrase voter assistance program again. But one of the things that some counties around the country have advocated is starting now, when you're having voter contact, to identify what's the voter's preference. Are they going to do early? Are they going to do election day? Or are they going to do mail-in? Yeah. And to capture that information, and then obviously then segment how you approach them as you get closer and closer to the election. And having that information in whatever database, however you collect it in the database, could be really, really useful. Robin, I forgive me, I'm ignoring Robin's comment, but I really shouldn't, which is 440,000 Democrats voted absentee and only 74,000 absentee is obviously mail-in. We now only 74,000 Republicans. That's boy, that if there's a headline from the election, that's got to be one of the ones that really we should be driving home as a important point.
And it's not like we made up for that number and 350,000 Republicans voted in person. It's a bunch of them didn't vote at all.
Right.
So we're coming to one of my favorite parts of the show, Adam, where you get to plug anything else you want to plug for the evening, and then I get to plug things, and Mark gets to plug things.
Oh, wow. I don't know that I'm prepared for that.
Well, red, white, and blue.
That's supposed to be the gotcha question.
And we've got convention. There's still time to register.
How can people get in contact with you if they have ideas or suggestions or questions?
So I'm completely open. So I'm happy to give out my phone number or my email, but for now I'll just give my email. It's just adam@mdgop.org. I welcome any and all questions, comments, complaints, requests for free of charge therapy. I mean, that's what I'm here for, right? Is I'm kind of if anybody in the party needs anything, and it's even tangentially related to getting Republicans elected, I want to take that call, and I really have nothing better to do. So please, feel free to call me. And more than that, I would say we need all the help we can get. So if you want to pitch in and you want to do something, let me know. We'll definitely put you to work. There's more to do than the hands available currently. So
we have like 4 Nicoles. We only have 1 Adam. So
that should be the new slogan, right? Hey, listen, Jackie, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that if people don't have plans on April 15th, they should be planning on doing something. What is that?
Yeah, if you were good and you got your taxes in early, you can come celebrate with the Maryland Young Republicans at our convention in Gaithersburg. Maybe that'll get added to Montgomery County. And we're going to be electing our new leadership. I'm running for chair, so I personally would love to see you all there. There's going to be omelets and waffles and coffee and just great times. Lauren Arkin will be coming and doing a legislative recap for us. So definitely, if you're around, come out. It's from 12 to 3, just in time to wrap up and go into DC for the evening, right? We're not even taking away your date night. You can go to DC after. And then Mark, we also have promoting the CRs on April 11th in College Park at Potomac Pizza. Come out for that's
One of the best pizza places in Maryland.
Yes,
The
thank you.
voice of God just came through there.
The
Yes.
absolute
By the way-
authority on pizza in the state of Maryland. Go out, support the Maryland College Republicans, and they definitely need the support. They are,
It's only $20 at the door. Only $20 at the door
for some good pizza. So go out to that as well. And all that information is on MontgomeryCountyRepublicanClub.com.
And we've got all these people that want to know what the Kansas state flag looks like. That's it.
I like the flower. I think I drew that picture when I was in kindergarten with the pink mountains. So, Mark, do you have anything to plug before we wrap up?
Listen, I'm smart enough to leave now after that.
All right. Well, we will be back next week, I believe, with Julie Giordano, right? My Comico County executive just celebrated her 100 days. And yeah, thank you, Adam, for joining us. Welcome to Maryland. Hopefully we didn't scare you off. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll be back next week.
Thanks a lot, Adam.
Thanks.